All right, now we're going to get into the good stuff. So, phase one of athletic development for bodybuilding is developing technical proficiency. There's two steps that you need to accomplish to do this. The first is to find the right exercises that fit your body for each movement pattern. Remember, that's squat, hip hinge, horizontal press, horizontal row, vertical row, or pull. How do you do that? Well, there's two ways. One is to hire a coach. And if they're an experienced coach, they'll be able to work with you. It's best in person, possible online. They'll be able to identify the structure of your body and match that to the movements that are most likely to fit your needs. Most people probably aren't looking to put in the investment in a coach like that, especially not when they're first starting out. So in that case, you're stuck with trial and error. And there's two different ways you can go about trial and error. One is you can fuck around in the gym and hope something works. The other is you can go on YouTube and you can look at a bunch of different high-level bodybuilders and you can choose some movements that look cool to you or that they recommend or that you've tried before and you can give them a shot. Obviously, I recommend the latter, right? There's nothing wrong with the former. If you have fun fucking around, go for it. But I think it'll be faster and probably a little bit less frustrating if you build on what people have already kind of established in the industry. So I am going to include in this lesson a bunch of different movements that I like and suggest that you take a look at. I could go into the gym myself and I could film all these, doing them myself, and I could show you my favorite movements, but the truth is pretty much everything that's ever needed is already out there. So rather than waste my time and your time putting out more content that's not adding to anything, I'm just going to link to people that I trust and that I recommend you check out. So, trial and error, you fuck around with a bunch of movements, you find the ones that fit for you. You're going to know they're the right fit if you can train them heavily, right? So you can use a pretty decent amount of weight the first time you use them. Maybe not a lot, but a good amount. You feel like you're working hard. And you feel the target muscle working, all right? So, for example, you're doing a hammer curl. We haven't talked about curls yet. I'll get to that in a minute. You're doing a hammer curl and you feel it in your elbows and your forearms, but not in your brachialis, your upper arm. Well, probably not the right movement for you, right? Contrast that, you're doing a, low cable curl and you feel everything in your bicep getting a sick pump. You can use a decent amount of weight, stick with the cable curl. Pretty obvious, right? I know there are a lot of nuances that many influencers will get into and we'll talk about, well, you have to have the angle of this, the angle of that. And yes, there's some benefit for that if you're going to compete in the Olympia stage, but short of that, you don't need to worry about it, okay? You just don't. A lot of these guys are just overcomplicating things for the sake of having something to talk about. So, you find your movement patterns. The second is, okay, so now how do I get good at these? You do them over and over and over again. So, the method I suggest for beginners when you're trying to develop technical proficiency in the lifts is to train with high frequency. There's a pretty good amount of research out there that shows you're going to get better at doing the same thing if you do it a lot, right? Again, I don't put a whole lot of stock in research, but this is one of the areas where I think that we know enough to say that's pretty much always going to be the case. So, for me, that typically looks like a full body split or an upper-lower split, depending on your preferences. And we'll talk about why you need to change splits in a later video. Depending on your preferences, full body or upper-lower, 3 to 4 times a week, doing the same things every time you train. And I realize that can get pretty boring, but keep in mind, you're a beginner. You're going to get better at these very, very quickly. And so hopefully the progress is exciting for you, and so you don't mind the repetition. That's really all there is to it at the beginner level. When you're first starting out, you don't have to think that hard. Honestly, you don't even have to work that hard. You just have to be consistent. What you don't want to do is fall into the trap of having program ADHD where everything looks shiny and fun, which it does, and so you're constantly switching things up and you're never actually making progress. That's really all you have to do as a beginner to really improve. Once you've mastered those lifts, you'll never really master them, right? It's a work in progress. But once you've gotten good enough at them that you can perform them with a decent amount of weight and you feel comfortable doing them, then it's time to move on to the next step.